I don't have a very good answer for you, unfortunately. We have a marketing firm in New York City that we have used for the last 5 years. It does a wonderful job of finding the people that we typically do business with. We profile our typical client, and they go out and find them, and they put them in the seats in all three of the venues, in Florida, and as I said, in New York, and here in Connecticut. Exactly how they go out and find you charming people, I just know they do a great job. As long as they keep doing it, I keep doing it. They do.
It must be
So,
for some people with a little bit of money, right?
no, in fact, it's the anti.
Okay.
No. In fact, matters, but they do.
The people under the bridge we saw today, John.
Yeah.
They're not here.
No. But as I said, that always comes up. Hopefully I'll have some better answers for you as we go along. Okay, we all set? Yes. Good. Dinner's on, so just make sure that. Okay.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our discussion on making the most of your assets for you and your heirs. My name is Sean Sullivan, and I'm a wealth planner at Davenport Associates, holding FINRA Series 7, 63, and Series 24 licenses. I'm also a fully licensed insurance broker. But before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about your host this evening, John Davenport. By way of his education, John received his undergraduate degree from the University of Notre Dame, his MBA in finance from Fordham University, and his law degree from Pace University. John's professional licenses include FINRA Series 6, 7, 63, and 65, which license him as a securities broker and a registered investment advisor. He is a licensed insurance broker, as well as a licensed attorney in the states of New York and Connecticut. Regarding John's professional background, he served as a corporate officer for TIAA CREF, which is one of the world's largest pension investment companies. He worked as an estates and trust attorney for a law firm in New York City, and before starting his own firm in 1997, John was an executive vice president and wealth planner for Merrill Lynch. John Davenport is the president of Davenport Associates and is the creator of the Wealth Optimization Method. His unique wealth planning process was recently featured on Connecticut Channel 12, along with articles in the Journal News and in a number of other business publications. John won the Forbes Small Business Award in 2006, and Davenport Associates was included in the May 2010 issue of Forbes magazine. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all enjoy the evening that we have planned for you. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you your host, John Davenport.
Notre Dame?
Notre Dame.
Better than the Giants.
Yes.
One and over.
Everything.
That was a
Everything better than the Giants.
I helped to balance thing off out this weekend.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's so good. It's a good friendly group. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the lovely, lovely Valbella restaurant. What a perfect venue for our discussion this evening about making the most of your assets, first and foremost for yourselves in retirement, and then when possible, and only when possible, making the most of those assets for the next generation or your loved ones. Let me tell you a little bit about Davenport Associates. We are an independent family wealth planning firm. I'm going to repeat that. An independent family wealth planning firm. As Sean mentioned, I used to be an executive vice president and wealth planner for Merrill Lynch. Now, Merrill's a fine firm. I have nothing bad to say about it. But what I can say is that the financial advisors and brokers at Merrill Lynch, like all the major wirehouses, have a natural bias towards recommending the products and services of their own firm. It's very natural. They work for the firm. And in many cases, it's very suitable. But in many cases, it's not. There are superior products offered by other firms that they simply cannot provide. As an independent firm, my professional staff and myself are licensed to do business with virtually any financial services company or insurance company in this country. Now, we take great pride in that independence. Why? Because when we're dealing with our clients, our only bias is towards our clients, towards finding the best products and the best companies in the world today to meet your individual needs and circumstances. And as I said, our clients come to value that independence very, very highly. We currently have two offices. Our headquarters is in Norwalk, Connecticut, 800 Connecticut Avenue. Lovely, lovely offices, and we certainly welcome you to come and visit with us. And we also have an office in Naples, Florida. You're probably all wondering the months of the year I spend in Naples, Florida. I can assure you it is not July. I can assure you it is not. Let me talk to you a little bit about why our clients are coming to tell us that we are approaching wealth planning like no other firm in the marketplace today. I know this is going to come as a great disappointment to some people in this room, but I am not going to stand up here tonight and talk to you about individual financial instruments and insurance products. They're probably all very, very disappointed about that, right? But you know what I am going to talk to you about? How to use assets. Assets that you've taken your entire lives to acquire. How to position those assets to create a cohesive purpose with 4 objectives in mind. Maximizing income, the tax efficiency of that income, the guarantees on that income. Maximizing the transfer of wealth without any adverse impact on the quality of the retirement of the people in this room. Minimizing or eliminating estate, income, and capital gains taxes. And then directing what I like to call social capital dollars or tax dollars to the causes of your choice rather than simply sending it off to the IRS to be redistributed any which way they want. And to do it all with more certainty and more peace of mind than you've ever enjoyed in your financial lives. Sound a little too good to be true, right? Okay, well, we often get that. You see, folks, in the 15 years I've been doing this, the people I've come into contact with and had the joy of working with have generally done a marvelous job of accumulating a degree of wealth. But what they don't understand is as they enter in or in retirement, the extraction of the benefits of that wealth is an entirely different art form. What I hope to do this evening is start to expose you to that art form and the profound, repeat, profound differences it can make both your own and your family's lives. If I do my job properly this evening, you're going to get a very, very good taste of that. Tonight is meant as an introduction, an insider's peek, so to speak, a backstage view of how we work and why our clients come to tell us it's so different than any other firm in the marketplace today. When I'm interviewed for papers and magazines, people always ask me, John, can you sum up in one sentence what you do for your clients? And the best way I've ever been able to describe it is as follows. I'd like to show my clients how to unleash the possibilities of their assets. I want to get you excited about those possibilities because it's ways of looking at those assets and how to position them and understanding their tax characteristics that you probably before have never been exposed to. I have a passion for what I do. I love what I do. We love to make a qualitative, not just a quantitative, but a real qualitative difference in our clients' lives and that of their family. I take great pride in saying that in the 15 years we've been at this, we have never lost a client to any of our 3 trademark programs. And the reason for that is not because I am the Jim Cramer of the world looking to tout you on the hot stock of the day. I am not that person and I'm never going to be that person. I think Mr. Cramer is very good at what he does. I've met him, he's a brilliant guy. But the fact of the matter is, I'm on the benefit side. The benefit side, meaning the retirement side. How to benefit from those assets for you and the people you love. All right? That's a whole different art form. And again, I hope to be able to give you an appreciation for that tonight. But one thing I hope that you more than anything else is to demonstrate that we approach this so much differently than anybody else. Typically, you walk into a financial advisor's office, right? You sit down, and what do they want to talk to you? Well, you have these growth investments, we have these growth investments. Let me tell you why ours are better than the ones you have. That's a typical kind of conversation that you would have with a new advisor. But we don't do anything like that. Right? We don't talk individual financial instruments and insurance products initially. What we want to talk about are ideas for usage of assets in retirement based upon their tax characteristics, how to position those assets for maximum benefit, income for you, which is king and queen to my clients, wealth to your heirs without any adverse impact on you, minimization, elimination of tax, direction of social capital, but more importantly, with more certainty and peace of mind. My client's relationship with me and our firm is not contingent solely on the movements of the CNBC ticker. All right? Solely on the movements. During 2008, I never received so many calls from my clients than in 2008 and 2009 saying, John, what would we have done had we not done the kinds of things that you were describing? I said, I know, but you're happy about it. Right? So the point of the matter is we take a different approach. So tonight, again, is this insider's peek, a little journey we're going to take you on. Relax, we have a lovely dinner planned for you. Let me talk to you about how to approach things in a little bit of a different way, but with a profound difference. And I think you'll be able to see it. Okay, let's get started. Asset types. There are 5 major asset types that I put up here on this board. Right, this is certainly not an all-inclusive list, but these are 5 of the major asset types. Tonight, we're going to take up on this insider's peek, as I mentioned, the first 2. All right? And we have strategies of the other ones as well as other assets. But why these 2, John? Well, because in my travels over 15 years, I have found that these 2 are very, very popular assets. These are assets that typically the people that we come in contact will have. All right? So when we look at these usage strategies, ways of being able to use assets most effectively in retirement for you and your family, this is very practical. This will make, hopefully, a major punch, so to speak, in understanding the possibilities that exist. You know, I want to get you excited about those possibilities. But most people will definitely tell us, when we talk to them about our strategies, they say, no one's ever talked to us like this before. Well, hopefully you'll get that same feeling this evening. All right? And it can be a wonderful discussion, a wonderful parlay. All right? And hopefully we can show you that. All right, let's get right into it. IRAs and qualified plans. Everybody's aware of the fact that at age 70 and a half, you have to start taking monies out of your IRAs and qualified plans. Does everybody remember that? It's called your required minimum distribution. Under the old law, there were 3 methods for calculating required minimum distribution, and you had to have a very savvy financial advisor to know which one was in your best interest. Unfortunately for most Americans, they didn't have that savvy advisor. The good news was that the IRS had no idea whether you were taking the right amounts from these particular programs. So Mr. Bush decided to change all that. Back in 2001, the law was changed, and now there's only one method for calculating required minimum distribution. Doesn't matter if you're male, female, ipso facto, bingo, bango, ba-boom. Very easy to calculate. But the quid pro quo now is that every custodian of an IRA or qualified plan account must report to the United States Treasury every year the exact amounts you need to be taking from these particular accounts. And if you fail to take them, there is a 50% penalty tax on top of ordinary income taxes. And that can be a very onerous tax. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is not the genius in detail. Here it comes. Under the old law, you had to take out approximately 5% of your IRAs and qualified plans beginning at age 70 and a half. Under the new law, you only have to take out approximately 3%. Now, you may have heard some of the financial gurus on CNBC or read about it in the financial pages of the Journal and Times. Hey, this is good news. We have to take less out of our IRAs and qualified plans, which means that more of those earnings can remain in those accounts to grow tax deferred, meaning I don't pay taxes on the earnings from year to year, which allows those earnings to compound upon one another, which allows the account to grow faster, which means ultimately there'll be more there for my heirs to inherit. True or false? I'm kind of leading you to water here. Anybody want to take a stab at that one? False. False. We call it the IRA tax trap. The IRA tax trap. Ladies and gentlemen, if you take monies out of your IRAs and qualified plans, you'll pay anywhere from 15 to 40 cents on the dollar. You leave those accounts as part of your taxable estate. At the death of the last surviving spouse, your heirs, presumably your children, could pay upwards of 60 to 70 cents on the dollar. That is an absolute crime. I know this is going to sound a little corny, but sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I feel like I have a mission from God. Don't let people die with pre-tax assets. Well, I know it sounds corny, but you must heed this warning before it's too late. Those assets represent the worst possible tax asset that you could ever die with. The worst possible tax asset. It is the only asset that you own that is triple taxed. Federal estate tax, federal income tax, state income tax. It'll chew it up faster than you can shake a stick at. That's the bad news. Want the good news? The good news comes in 2 parts. First, you can beat Uncle Sam in his own game. You can eliminate Uncle Sam on every single dollar of your IRAs and qualified plans with very little time and effort on your part. Good news, right? The second piece of good news is one no one ever talks about, but I'm going to talk about it with you this evening. And that is, most Americans are not aware of the fact that those pre-tax assets, those worst possible tax assets to die with, also represent, for most Americans, the most opportunistic asset for creating family wealth that they will ever own. The most opportunistic asset for creating family wealth that they will ever own. So the choice is yours. Worst possible tax asset to die with, the most opportunistic asset for creating family wealth that you ever will own. What's that choice going to be? And I'm not talking about Roth and Roth conversions. Roth is a nice idea for 30, 35-year-olds, but not many people in this country actually converted from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. Why not? What didn't they want to pay? Taxes, right? But what if you could create a Roth-like account, right? A Roth-like account, a tax-free account for your heirs, like a supercharged Roth, and never have to pay the taxes. But we're going to show you how to do that this evening. We want to show you how to use IRAs and qualified plans more effectively, what manner, to generate far more income than the required minimum. Required minimums are a mistake to take required minimum distribution, and I'll explain that more to you later. To take more income than you're required, to transfer more wealth than you would ever have made in the marketplace alone to your heirs. Eliminate or minimize tax and direct any of those tax dollars to causes of your choice with more certainty and peace of mind. Right? That's what we do at Davenport & Associates. Show you unique strategies based upon the tax characteristics of these different types of assets for positioning those assets for the utmost purpose, and that's income. Second is the transfer of wealth without any adverse impact. Right? But it's an understanding how to use it and what the government's trying to teach you. But you can beat him at his own game. Right? So that's one of those use of strategies we're going to look at this evening. Second, highly appreciated assets. It's highly appreciated assets. Let's suppose I had a stock worth $500,000, and I bought some 30 years ago for $100,000. Right? Probably like to know what that stock is, right? Down to an associate job? Sure, right, that's good. Right, if I sell that stock, I will realize what is called a $400,000 capital gain. Now, capital gain rates will change back in 2013, and the highest rate for couples with incomes of $250,000 to $400,000 is 18.8%. So for the privilege of selling that stock, I will pay Uncle Sam on a federal level $75,200 for the privilege of doing it. Okay. We call that asset, ladies and gentlemen, a highly appreciated asset. Now, don't a lot of Americans own highly appreciated assets? In fact, isn't wealth building in the United States today just a series of building highly appreciated assets? I started with a $50,000 stock portfolio, now it's worth $1 million. I started with a $50,000 piece of real estate, now it too is worth $1 million, and I get to retirement, and on paper, I'm an affluent individual. But why don't affluent individuals sell highly appreciated assets in retirement to generate more benefit in the form of income for them? Why don't they do it? What don't they want to pay? That's right. And what is the most commonly used method, not the most effective, mind you, but the most commonly used method in the United States today for avoiding the payment of capital gain taxes on the sale of a highly appreciated asset? Can anybody tell? What's that?
Taking losses.
Well, you can write them off getting lost, but how about any other way? Anybody? This is the most commonly used method. Not a very effective one, I have to say. All right, I like to call it the death method. Okay? Here's how the death method works. Let's suppose I were to die, and I left this particular stock to my daughter. My daughter would receive what is called an increase, or in accounting parlance, a step-up in the purchase price of the asset to the value of that asset as of the day of my death. So if my daughter turned around the very next day and decided to sell that stock, obviously the mourning period was very short. How much would she pay in capital gains taxes? Zero. Nothing. The death method. Well, who benefits from the death method? My daughter's coming to the gravesite and saying, hey, that was some prudent investment you made some 30 years ago, Pop. Oh, and by the way, rest easy, because I can assure you that in the course of my lifetime, I will fully benefit from that asset. Now, I think we can all join together in saying that when we have fully utilized our assets for our own fruits of our labor, so to speak, we're happy to pass those assets on to our loved ones. But wouldn't it be nice, having done all the hard work, if mom and dad could benefit first? Well, what if there was a way to sell any highly appreciated asset? Any asset, I bet right now you can identify in the back of your minds that you would either pause or stop dead in your tracks before you would sell it, because you wouldn't want to pay those taxes. What if there's a way to sell it, not pay the capital gains tax, generate income on the gross proceeds for the rest of both of your natural lives or individual lives, all right, and still pass on the value of that asset to your heirs tax-free? I'm going to repeat that. Sell any highly appreciated asset, an asset that you might go to your grave before you pay that tax. All right? Sell it, not pay the tax, generate income for both your lives, regardless of who dies first, on the gross proceeds before tax, and yet still pass on the value of that assets to your children tax-free. Well, that's the second little usage strategy we're going to look at. How do we use highly appreciated assets in retirement? So that's what we do here at Davenport. Look at all the different types of assets, real estate asset, equity, all the different types. How do we position those assets? So what? So we could maximize income, maximize the transfer of wealth, minimize or eliminate what? Capital gains taxes in this case, or income taxes and estate taxes on IRAs in that case, right? And direct any of those social capital dollars to causes of our choice, but more importantly, with more certainty and more peace of mind than you've ever enjoyed on financial lives. And that's what we do. So tonight we're going to look at those two major asset types that, as I say, most people have. IRAs, qualified plan, and highly appreciated. And how that, just those two, can have a profound difference in the amount of benefit you have in the form of income. I will never benefit my clients directly other than in the form of income. To my clients, income is king and queen, because that's what they enjoy for the fruits of their labor. If I end up showing them how they can give $20 million to their children, they might feel nice about that, okay, feel good about it, but it's not going to benefit them. Right? What benefits them is cash flow. As many a client has often said to me, John, we know the equity markets are the best markets in the world. And over time, they have proven to be that case. However, all right? If we work with your firm, there's one thing that is never going to go down, and that's our income. And to make sure, regardless of what's happening in the marketplace, that our income never goes down, it can only go up. Yes, in fact, we can. Right? And we show them ways of doing it. That doesn't mean we don't want the equity growth. When equity growth comes, of course we do, and everybody enjoys it when that time comes. What's king and queen to them, what keeps them my client is cash flow. Right? Because that's what they use to enjoy their lifestyle. So we show them they can have the best of both worlds. That's what we're going to show you. Okay? Usage. Using assets the most effective way possible. Okay, well, let's start. Okay. IRAs and qualified plans. They said they haven't even started how? Yeah. Weird. Okay, you can start. Okay. Okay, I have a client, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, new client. Come to my office. Before I get started, by the way, let me just preface this with a couple remarks. One is, when we're going through these usage strategies, try not to get hung up on the mechanics or the minutiae of those strategies. I'd be happy to address any questions you have. By all means, just stop me. But why I say that is this, is that if we ever end up doing some work together, whether it be these strategies or others, I can assure you that we are going to take as much time and go over these strategies as often as we need to make sure that you're fully informed and you fully understand every aspect of each of those strategies. Because why? Because our programs are not built on a time clock. I used to do this type of work as an attorney in New York City for a large firm in New York. And clients would come into my office, and I would sit them down, and I'd hit my little magic button, and I'd start charging them at the rate of $450 an hour. You know what that client wanted to do? They wanted to get out of my office as fast as humanly possible. That's what they wanted to do. You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to sit there.
Slowly.
That's right. I wanted to sit there until I was blue in the face. I've learned in the 2.5 years of the firm is that the type of planning I do cannot be done on a time clock. So when I developed my trademark programs, I eliminated the time clock. So if I have a very sophisticated, sometimes I have a very sophisticated investor, right? He says, John, I love this idea, it's fun, let's do it. Okay, let's do it. A couple meetings, I'm done. Right? I have other investors, other clients who say to me, John, I love the benefits of what you speak. It makes a lot of sense, but really need to go over A, B, C, D, and E again and again until we feel very comfortable. Fine, absolutely. We're committed to making sure, because that's how we continue with a very satisfied client. Right? So as we go through here tonight, what I really want you to pick up on are the possibilities. By using assets properly, what the profound differences and the qualitative benefits can be for you and your family. The minutiae we can always get into, but again, I'm happy to address any questions you might have.
Jim, just a quick question.
Sure.
IRA, well, still with 401ks as well, same sort of category.
Yeah, anything that's pre-tax. We're talking 401ks, non-qualified deferred comp, tax-deferred annuities, anything like that. Anything that's pre-tax is all lumped together for purposes of it. The great assets for building wealth. They're just not great assets to transfer. Right? Not great assets to transfer. Most people, when they transfer IRAs and qualified plans, what do? They actually, their beneficiaries, i.e. their children, will typically take them in the form of what's called a IRA stretch payment, where they'll stretch the payments over their life expectancy, and thereby stretch the taxes over their life expectancy. By doing so, they'll minimize Uncle Sam's involvement in that. My answer to you is, that's a wonderful benefit. It's still a great benefit to give the kids this nice lifetime income. However, with the proper planning, you can have a much bigger bang for your dollar, where you're going to enjoy much more benefit in the form of income. The kids are going to enjoy a lot more tax-free wealth from that than you ever would have made just in the marketplace alone. Right? And Uncle Sam, we can get rid of him altogether. That's what we're going to look at. Using these assets. Finish?
John, when you talk about highly appreciated assets, in my mind, right away comes stock. Sure. Not so much bonds, but stock. Real estate.
Oh, sure. Primary residence, I call my residence for
Secondary residence.
it could be a primary, or it could be investment properties, anything that you would pause in selling because you didn't want to pay the tax. Yeah, we've done the technique I'm going to show you tonight. We've used with commercial buildings, residential buildings, primary residences, investment properties, stocks, anything the client would have paused in selling because they didn't want to pay a tax. And it's very easy to do. I know in the back of your mind you can identify things quick that you do not sell because you don't want to to pay tax. It's going to make an alternative where, in fact, you benefit and the heirs benefit with a lot more peace of mind. That's what we're going to show you. The other thing I'm going to tell you is before you switch is please don't read anything into the number here. I mean, people invariably ask me later on, John, does that mean you only deal with $1 million IRAs? No. I love dealing with $1 million IRAs, but it's certainly not a requirement. I simply use $1 million because it makes it makes it very easy to do math. I don't end up embarrassing myself, which I'm also very keen on. That is true. All right, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, coming to my office, new client, age 70. And they have $1 million collected here separately in IRAs. I sit them down, I get them a cappuccino. I said, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, tell me, I know you have about $1 million of IRA collected separately. All right, what are you doing with that IRA money? Well, John, we're taking our required minimum distribution. Ding, 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 ding. Immediately the bell goes off. I said, oh, really? Do you mind if I ask you a follow-up question? He said, no, of course. Well, if the government didn't require or mandate you to take that required minimum distribution, would you take it? You know what oftentimes is the answer? No. No, that's right. I said, why not? Well, we have pension income, we have municipal bond income, we have a lot of other income. In fact, John, we take the monies out of the IRA, report it on our 1040, right? And then we reinvest that into something to be more advantageous for the children to inherit. Ah, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, sit down, let me refill your cappuccinos, because we have to have a very serious conversation. You see, folks, what I've got to get my clients to see, and what I've got to get most of my prospective clients to see, is that if I'm not going to fully utilize this asset for income in retirement, then those assets will become part of my taxable estate at the death of the last surviving spouse, right? With the presumption and the hope that those assets transfer onto whom? To whom? That's right, your children, your heirs. Which begs the question, is it a good one? Well, let's take a look. I told you in 2001, the law was changed, and the amount that you were required to take out from your IRAs and qualified plan asset is approximately 3%. Right? 3% of $1 million is $30,000. So for purposes of our discussion this evening, that represents a required minimum distribution. Now let's suppose Mr. and Mrs. Jones here have been averaging about 8% on the investments in their IRA. Now, over the last 15 years. If we have any historians of the market here, you'll note that in any 15-year period, an 8% return is a very reasonable rate of return. 8% of $1 million is $80,000. Okay? Which leaves excess earnings of 5% or $50,000. Let's just make sure we understand our terms here. Client is making on average 8% of the IRA investments. That's $80,000 a year in earnings. They're required by law at 70.5 to take out 3% or $30,000. Leaving on average per year excess earnings that they're not required to take out of approximately $50,000. Okay? My first question to you is, what's happening to the $50,000? Where does it go? They don't have to take it out as income. Where does it go? And this is not a trick question. Where does it go? That's exactly right. Right back into the IRA. Now your broker isn't calling you on the phone and saying, oh, by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you know that $50,000 of excess earning? Do you want us to put it back into the IRA? All right. But what I've got to get you for my clients to see is that even though you're not getting that call, unconsciously, you, by reinvesting these dollars back into the IRA, you're making an unconscious investment election ultimately for whom?
Uncle Sam.
Well, true, that is eventually what is going to happen. But for your heirs, which once again begs the question, is it a good one? Well, if I was going to break with tradition tonight, talk to you about an investment, which by the way I'm not going to do, all right? What is the first thing that everybody always wants to know if you're being proposed a new investment? What's the first thing everybody wants to know? I'm going to show you a brand new investment. What's the first thing you want to know about it?
Safe.
Well, safety is certainly good, but what's the first thing? Yield, that's right. What's the rate of return on that investment? And even though safety and risk is certainly a major issue, what is the other major factor that you must always know in order to understand and properly evaluate a new investment? How it's to be what? How it's to be taxed. If you don't understand how an investment is to be taxed, ladies and gentlemen, you don't know enough about that investment. Okay? For example, I'll use Barrett, I'll use you an example if you don't mind. January 1, 2014, I had this wonderful investment from January 1, 2014 to December 31st, 2014. An investment that's going to return you 50% on your money. 50% guaranteed without any market risk whatsoever. You like it so far?
So far, sounds good.
Sounds okay. Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Did I also tell you that that 50% investment that I mentioned to you is also taxed 90 cents on the dollar?
Not bad, not good.
Not good. That might take away this thing, or the enthusiasm, I should say. All right? Again, you have to look at investment-weighted assets to be taxed. Now here, this client is making 50%, they're making 8%. Still a respectable rate of return. They may not be jumping through hoops, but very respectable. But if I go on and show them that for every dollar of excess earnings that they're not using for the quality of their retirement, that they're ultimately putting back into their IRA, is to be taxed at 60 to 70 cents on the dollar, potentially, to their children. Is that a good investment for their children? No. Folks, if you learn anything tonight, this is not the investment to try to leave to your heirs. You will leave it to your heirs, right? And the likelihood is they'll take it as an IRA stretch paid over their life expectancy. But that's not the goal. The goal shouldn't be, ladies and gentlemen, this is an important point, right, to die with the highest one of those. Right? The goal, in my humble opinion, and my clients' opinion, because I changed their tune on this, right, is to start the income as early as you want it, to take as much as you possibly can without the possibility of it going down and without the possibility of running out, because you position it properly, right, to get maximum benefit. So the goal is to start as early as you can, take as much as you possibly can, but make sure it's positioned such that you can never run out. That's the goal. Those assets are built for income, for you, not for your heirs, for you. Does that mean we want to replace those assets to your heirs more effectively? Absolutely, and we're going to use Uncle Sam's dollars to do it. But the fact of the matter is, they're assets you have to understand to be utilized. Right? The more we can get out of those accounts, the more we can do with it. In forms of what? Well, first and foremost, we can use all that extra income, or the income, to what? Spend, to enjoy our lifestyles, to go do the things we've always wanted to do. Second, if we've done all of that, we can't spend anymore, is to gift. And we can make gifts in two forms, living gifts or testamentary gifts. And finally, when all else fails, we can reinvest it into something that's more advantageous for our children to inherit. But the goal is always to get it out of there. Okay? Not to die with eyes. Once I get my clients to see this problem, by the way, I don't ask you to take my word for this, I am going to show you. It's a very, usually it's a very awakening type of a response. I will actually show you what Uncle Sam is on the hook for in terms of your IRAs and qualified plans when you work together. It'll usually knock your socks off. But once I get you to understand the problem, people generally say to me, well, John, if I follow your logic, maybe I should not reinvest the $50,000 of excess earnings that I'm not counting on for my own retirement, but take those out, report those two on my 1040 at a reduced effective rate, which it is. Right? The effective rate that you pay is a lot less than 60 to 70 cents on the dollar. And then reinvest them into something that would be more advantageous for my children to inherit. I said, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you just took a major step forward. Congratulations. What would you like to invest it in? They say, well, what would you like to invest it into a stock? How about a stock? Well, that's interesting. If we took those excess earnings, paid the taxes on it, and reinvested into a stock over a 25-year joint life expectancy, right, in time, and that stock averaged 6 to 8%. When you both died, your heirs would receive that step up from the purchase price to the value of that stock at death, so they pay nothing in capital gains taxes. Right? They might pay something in estate taxes based upon what the law is and the value of their estate, but nothing in capital gains taxes. Is that better than putting it back into the IRA to potentially be taxed at 60 to 70 cents on the dollar? You're darn right it is. But then I say to my client, can we go one step further? How about we look at a strategy where we're going to maximize the income to you, that you're going to enjoy more income from that asset than you ever would have received had you never met me. All right? And that income can never go down, and you can never run out of it. Your heirs are going to receive more wealth tax-free from that asset than you ever would have made in the marketplace alone, and you don't even have to worry about it. And Uncle Sam gets 0. How about that? Yeah, why don't you show us that? Okay, good. Here we go. What if we took this $50,000 that you were previously reinvesting unconsciously back into the IRA to potentially be taxed at 60, 70 cents on the dollar to your children, right? And we've already concluded with what we call an IRA analysis, or a qualified plan analysis, pre-tax analysis, that you will never need for the quality of your own retirement. I'm never going to ask you to redirect dollars for the next generation. If there's ever the possibility that you need it, of course, that'd be close to malpractice. But if we show you in a very, very sophisticated analysis that you're never going to need it, The goal, the challenge to you, is to do something while you're living to help Fox Uncle Sam. Right? So the fact is, what if we were then to redirect this dollars that we've already concluded you're never going to need for the quality of your own retirement, and that you've been reinvesting back into the IRA with Uncle Sam salivating at the prospect, redirect them into a new type of IRA. An IRA I like to call the IRA Trust. The IRA Trust. Why a trust, John? Well, because whatever's in the IRA Trust is estate tax-free, income tax-free, excise tax-free, it's pure and unadulterated cash for your heirs. Well, that's great. I like that. Triple taxed asset, federal estate tax, federal income, state income, tax-free. Triple tax, tax-free. It's kind of rhetorical on which one your children would rather have. But the next logical question then becomes, well, what are we invested in? What is the investment inside an IRA trust? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one investment inside every IRA trust in the United States today, and one investment alone. All right? Bill Gates has an IRA trust, and it's invested in the exact same thing. Because there's only one investment in the United States today that you can actually transfer to your heirs tax-free. Only one. Can anybody name it?
Life insurance.
That's correct. Life insurance. Now, this is not life insurance designed to replace income in the event that someone prematurely dies. This is not life insurance to pay off a mortgage in the event of a premature death. This is life insurance designed for the next generation. Designed as an investment. It's just a very powerful one after the age of 60, 55, 60. Very, very powerful. Okay? Very, very powerful. We typically like to use inside this trust what is called joint life or survivorship life, or last to die, meaning that we like to insure both lives as opposed to just one. Because the probability of two people dying is a lot less than the probability of one person dying. Right? Ergo, the value and the leverage capability of the value of that trust is enhanced when I can insure the two parties. Does that mean that both parties have to be insured for this technique to work? No, it does not. I only need one. But obviously, it's preferable if I can have both. People are often astounded at how insurable they are well into their 80s. Right? I have insured people up to the age of 89. And I have to tell you, at age 89, you have something wrong with them. Right? The fact of the matter is people are astounded. Right? The failure is to not consider it. Right? Because it doesn't cost you a dime to find out. It doesn't cost you a dime. And the failure is kind of, it's Uncle Sam taking a good percentage of what you currently have. All right? So joint life insurance is what we typically like to use down here. Now, just to give you an example, with this IRA, when do IRAs and qualified plans typically given to your children? The death of the first spouse or the second spouse? When is it? Second spouse. That's right. When the first spouse dies, the survivor, he or she, will roll his monies over to her or his own name, take income, and when they die, it passes on to the children. Okay? Same thing here with the IRA trust. When are those proceeds paid to the children? The death of the first spouse or the second spouse? The second spouse. So the timing of to when your children get the IRA is exactly the same. But let me show you what the power is in this investment. I mentioned that this was a 70-year-old couple. This is an actual number. I'm not making this one up. With one investment premium, we call it. With one investment premium that they were previously putting back unconsciously into the IRA, right, thinking that was a great thing to do, to potentially be taxed at 60 to 70 cents on the kids, that's going to force them to take a life income stretch for the rest of their natural lives. Right? With one investment premium, they were able to put in here $4 million. And they did it overnight. Did they have to wait for the stock that they were investing in? Remember that stock that was earning 6 to 8% that I talked about? Did they have to wait for that stock to grow over 26 years? How do you know you're going to die in the biggest bull market in the history of this country? You might die in the biggest bear market in the history of our country. Right? How do I know how long you're going to live to see it? Right? My clients like what? They love certainty. Certainty, 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 certainty. This is certain. If you die tomorrow, it's worth $4 million tax-free to your children. If you die 50 years from now, it's worth $4 million tax-free to your children. And it has to pay off. It's designed that way. Once we set this baby up, by the way, on an equivalent tax basis, I told you this is a triple taxed IRA. Federal, state, federal income, state income. Up to potentially 60 or 70%. Well, even if it was just 50%, on an equivalent tax basis, that would be like taking your $1 million IRA tomorrow and turning it into $8 million for your children. Right? I just became the best portfolio manager the world has ever seen. Right? How long do you think it would take your $1 million IRA to get to $8 million in the marketplace today? Well, there's a rule of thumb in finance called the rule of 72. Money's double every 10 years at 7%. So let's do the math together. At age 80, they'd be worth $2 million. At age 90, this would be worth $4 million. At age 100, it'd be worth $8 million. And we know we can never get there because as you get older, the government's going to require you to take more out. But the fact is, just for comparison purposes, we take it to a minimum of age 100. Once I put this in place, I say to my clients, is $8 million, Mrs. Jones, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I know you have other assets, we'll look at those, but is $8 million enough to give the kids just from the IRAs and the qualified plan? Yes, John, that's plenty. That's great, that's terrific. And you don't ever have to worry about it. That's right, that's good, yeah, I like that a lot. Good, then here's my next question to you. Why do you have to die with this one? Why do you have to die with that one?
No.
You don't have to die with that one. What, do you receive an Oscar or an Emmy for dying with the highest IRA? No, folks, you should get a slap on the wrist, right? The idea is, once we have replaced it more effectively to the kids, with dollars that you will never ultimately need for your own quality of life, then the object of this one is to what? Spend it without running out of it. Right? What is so magical about 70 and a half? What is so magical about the R&D number 70 and a half? It is a government-imposed number. I have clients who take money from these accounts in the late 50s, early 60s, late 60s. There's nothing more than 70 and a half. It's a government-imposed number. If you are taking required minimum distributions at this time, stop. All right? Because you are falling into what I have termed, and have written articles about, the IRA tax trap. The IRA tax trap. Right? But once we've replaced it, the goal now is to utilize this. And I say to my clients, well, if we position this IRA properly, I'm going to show you how to do it. We can have unlimited growth in the equity markets with the best companies in the world, Goldman Sachs, all the major players. You pick it. We control the investments. We pick all these wonderful companies to invest with. Right? But they will also guarantee us an income that will start at double the R&D rate of 6%. Double. And that's the start. I keep on feeding out more income as you get older. So instead of having $30,000, I'm now going to give the client $60,000. You know what the client typically says to me? John, we didn't want the $30,000. You know? Why do you want to give us $60,000? Hell of a conversation to have with clients. I want to give you more money. Yeah, that's always a nice conversation. But the point is that I say to them, by having more money, and if the income can never go down, it can only go up no matter what happens in the marketplace. And the monies are still going to funnel onto your children as the residual value when you die. The idea is to take it. To take it and do what with it? Well, one of three things. The first thing is, as I mentioned before, quality of life. Go spend it. If you can spend every dollar, more power to you. Have fun. But people I have found in 15 years of doing this are generally creatures of habit. They don't change their spending habits dramatically from pre-retirement to post-retirement. So, if you've done all the spending you can do, what's the next thing you have to do with those monies? Gift it. You can make annual gifts of $14,000 to any taxable entity you want. A couple can do $28,000. You also have a $5.3 million lifetime gift exclusion. I could write a check tomorrow to my daughter for $5.3 million, and I wouldn't pay a dime in gift tax. Right? There are a lot of things you can do. Spend it, gift it, and if you've done all of those, what's the next best thing to do it? Reinvest it into something that is more advantageous for the kids to inherit. But ladies and gentlemen, get it out of here. If we can find a way to double, at a minimum basis, double the required minimum distribution amount, percentage. Minimum, not major, it's going to continue to go up as you get older. Not have the income go down even if the market value of your investments go down. And that you can never run out of that income regardless of who dies first, until both of you have passed away. Right? Why in God's name wouldn't you start it? Why would you start the income? On an asset that Uncle Sam is salivating at the prospect of you dying. Of course you use the income because the power of that income to either spend, to gift, or to create trusts with life insurance, or to reinvest, the power of that income is far more than reinvesting it back into the IRA. So if you're doing that, you gotta stop. Take my word. He this one before it's too late. Still alive from the musical music. Right? These assets are powerful devices for creating family wealth if you properly position them and use them. That doesn't mean my clients don't want the growth. And doesn't mean that they don't want to die with IRA qualified plan assets and let the kids have the IRA stretch. But look at this. If they've had more income, and now the kids not only have this, but have the residual value of their IRAs and qualified plans to take an IRA stretch with. So they have the cash, the income, and you have enjoyed more benefit while you were living. I have a little theme, hang on 2 seconds. I have a little theme to run through all of my usage strategies. And I think you're going to like this theme. Parents win, heirs win, IRS loses. Anybody have a problem? I have to tell you that usually goes over pretty good. Right? The point is that, let's go back here. Do the parents win in this case? They're taking more income as early as they want. No 70.5 rule. As early as they want it. You can take income even before 59.5 and not pay the pre-withdrawal penalty tax. There are ways of getting around that too. Right? They're taking more income than the government wants them to take, because the government wants to take as little as possible and build a really big nest egg for them to tax. More income, the income is going to get greater as they get older. They can't run out of the income, and the income can't go down. Peace of mind. The income can't go down. And they're going to use that income and enjoy a lot more fruits of their labor. They're going to do all the things they want to do, spend, or give. Right? So they have more income. What about the heirs? The heirs have, on an equivalent tax basis, $8 million of cash, or $4 million of tax-free cash, when the last spouse dies. Alright? So parents win, more income and more benefit than they ever would have received, and peace of mind because they can't run out of that income and the income can't go down. The kids have more in tax-free wealth than they ever would have made in the marketplace alone. I told you it would take age 100 to get there. Alright? And IRS gets how much? Well, you can do one of two things. You can either allow the children to inherit the IRA residual value and take it as an IRA stretch on top of the cash, which is better than what you're currently doing, or you could name as a contingent beneficiary on those IRAs and qualified plans your favorite charity or family foundation, which many of my clients do. They say, well, John, I'm giving them already $8 million, and we're enjoying so much more benefit and we're doing living gifts and everything else, right? Then when we die, we'd like it to go to our favorite charity. Fine. Parents win, heirs win. How much does the IRS get in that case? Zero. Right? We direct those social capital to causes of our choice, having enjoyed more benefit in the form of income, more peace of mind, and having transferred more wealth, tax-free to your children than you ever would have made in the marketplace alone, and you don't have to worry about it. Right? I don't have too many clients who jump up at 9:30 in the morning to run over to the computers to find out if the market is opening. I have some. I have former money managers with clients. But they always say to me, John, I don't do that anymore. That's what you do. You report to me on it. All right? I'm all doing my voting or this or that or that. Okay, fine. But I don't have to many. Right? Because the fact is people don't want to worry about it. Does anybody really want to worry about it? Of course not. It's not by choice that you worry about it. Right? I don't know. We've had a nice run. When that run ends, I don't know. We have experts on both sides of it. But the fact of the matter is, we position those assets properly, the bang for you in terms of income, the bang for your kids in terms of tax-free wealth, and the peace of mind associated with that usage strategy, those qualitative benefits are enormous. Far more than you've probably experienced. But the challenge is yours. I always say to clients, the only thing I need from a good client is that you're motivated to find out how to do it. I don't expect you to know all the answers tonight, but I'd like you to be able to say to each other, hey, that guy came up with an idea. Well, we can start the income as early as you wish. The income is going to be 2 times the amount of the required minimum when it will be started. That income cannot go down, it can only go up regardless of our actual market investments. And we're going to transfer more wealth to our children, irregardless of what happens in the marketplace, or even what we could have made in the marketplace had we tried to do that just alone. Maybe we should go see that. That's what I want you to say. Right? Because it's a usage strategy. Understand the tax implications and how these assets are viewed by the IRS, right? Gives us an insight on how to use them. And the usage is for you and income, transfer wealth, minimization, elimination of tax, direction of social capital. With more peace of mind, not less. I have to tell you folks, I don't like having bad conversations with clients. I don't know how many brokers really do, financial advisors. But I have to tell you another thing. I don't have bad conversations. I have better ones. Hey, the market's up 20% this year. That's great. But I don't have bad ones. And I'll tell you what, that makes for a hell of a nice way of making a living. I love and enjoy, and we have very comprehensive relationships with our clients, because our relationship isn't based solely on the CNBC ticker. Right? All our clients, everybody loves growth. Market's doing well, everybody loves it. Right? So do my clients. But that's not why they're my client. They sit there, when they sit in there, if I put all my clients, all 500, in a room together, and I say, what is the best investment I've ever given for your children? They all raise their hand and say, IRA trust, wealth trust, IRA trust, well, it is. There is no better one because of the tax implications of it. And what do they love? is that their God, the king and queen, to them is income, cash flow. It's been maximized, it's tax efficient, it's guaranteed, they can't run out of it, they can't go down. And they can go off and enjoy the things they've always wanted to do and not worry about it. Let me worry about it, and I'll report to you on it. Very powerful, very powerful. Okay, questions? Yes, gentlemen. Barry, do you have a question?
I'm a New Yorker,
Okay.
so I'm cynical
Okay.
about things.
I
Not
should
sure
have
what I'm talking about so much as if you get a situation, I have two questions actually. The first one is, if you have something set up, IRA trust, life insurance policy for your heirs. Let's assume you love your children.
Okay, let's assume that.
But your children could marry people
Right. That you don't love as much.
that you might not love as much. And they're cynical New Yorker that I am. If someone were to find out that your child
Right.
is upon your death is going to be wealthier than beyond belief, is there a way to protect those situations so that ne'er-do-wells that try to marry in or do marry in aren't the beneficiaries of your hard work?
That's right. The question here really comes down to, is there a way of being able to protect your inheritance for your children or whatever against the possibility of creditors, against the possibility of divorce? Yes, the answer is yes. While they're inside that trust, right, you can set up provisions inside the trust, where it can be left in trust with the ability to take the principal out anytime they want, but then it would never be subject to a divorce proceeding or a settlement or anything like that. So yeah, there are ways of being able to do that. So your children are totally protected against the possibilities of creditors and or suitors.
Second part of my question is, can you change? When you talked about charities and stuff,
Can you change them?
yes,
Sure.
before you take off?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, anything that we would do to name a beneficiary to a charity, of course, you can change that, it's revocable at any time. And so yes, the answer to your question is absolutely. Absolutely. But again, it's the idea of using those IRAs or qualified plans more effectively for income and wealth, right? With more certainty, not less. Right? You know exactly what you're going to give the kids. Right? You're taking more income than you would have had to. You're probably afraid to take more than the required minimum because you know why people don't take more than the required minimum? Because in the back of their mind, they think they're going to run out of it. Well, you're not going to run out of it. I'll show you analysis that will astound you. But the government is hoping. Why do you think the government dropped the 5% requirement to 3%? Because they're nice guys? No. Because they want you to spend less so they can tax more at death. This is a living time bomb. This problem doesn't go away. It gets worse and worse and worse every year because you continue to reinvest the money back into it. And it compounds upon itself and the problem just continues to escalate. The challenge is to do something today. Again, I told you before, the biggest strength a client of mine can have is that they're motivated to understand how to get it done. People always think, well, you know, John, maybe I'm not insurable. Or how are we going to design this policy? Don't worry about it. The question is, take the time to consider it. One of the things I tell clients is the biggest failure, all right, is that you don't take the time to at least consider it. Because 99.9% of the time, it'll work for you, all right? And the key is that to consider it will cost you a single solitary dime. So if you know what the default is, if you know what the alternative is in giving as much of this to Uncle Sam and requiring your kids to take their benefit, the benefit of an IRA or qualified plan as an IRA stretch, and forcing their hand, if you know these things in advance, right, then take a modicum of time to understand alternatives that are going to benefit you first in the form of income, and then in the form of wealth, and the other one who's going to lose in that game is Uncle Sam. It's silly. It seems silly. It seems absolutely silly. But I do have people that I've actually met with who say, John, the kids get what they get. I said, is that really how you want to do it? Yeah, okay. They don't really, but I have to be, if I'm speaking for myself, if I take the time to earn it, I want to make the most out of it. For me first, and then for the people I love. All right? And it's not a hard thing. So again, the intricacies of these things, not that it's that complicated. It's understanding how to use it. That's all. But most people are never spoken to like this relative to these assets. Okay? Because that's not the way the government wants you to look at it. They want you to defer. They want you to take R&D payments at 70 and a half. And they want you to keep doing them to the day you die. Right? And then they're going to triple tax it, and they're going to force your children's hand, and all that, whereas you could have done so much more with it. Okay? Let me show you how to do it. Yes?
Just to clarify, on the, you mentioned the step up, if you're in a stock and you die.
Yes, step up.
I assume that doesn't work then with the residualism, the IRA, but that's an all stock.
Yeah, these are all pre-tax money. They never had a cost basis, because you never pay taxes.
What if it was funded with after-tax money?
Well, sure. And if they weren't, I wouldn't really think of that as an IRA, I think of that as a non-qualified annuity. Because there would be a cost basis. The monies I put in were already tax dollars. And the earnings would only be taxed. Right? But it's a good question. But the fact of the matter is it'd be a different beast. That doesn't mean we can't use it, and there's strategies for it, absolutely. But it's a different beast. This is a time clock. But remember what I said earlier. It is an absolute opportunity, everybody here, everybody I talk to around the country. It's an opportunity for creating family wealth with more certainty and peace of mind. Don't let Uncle Sam beat you at this game, because you have the upper hand if you understand how to do it. Okay, next. By the way, a lot of people always ask me, John, if I take the $50,000 out that I previously was putting back into my IRA, aren't you going to throw me into a higher marginal bracket? Yeah, I probably am. You are. But I'm not really interested in your marginal rate. What I'm interested more is your effective rate. Right? How do you calculate your effective tax rate? This is your tax rate after all of your deductions. When you go back to your latest tax return, you take the tax line and you adjust it by your adjusted taxable income. And that'll give you the rate that you actually pay on every dollar that you earn after all your deductions. You'd be very surprised that for most people, even affluent individuals, that number on a federal level is probably anywhere from 18 to 20%. Pretty good. Right? 18 to 20%. Is it better than the kids getting it at 60 to 70 cents? Of course it is. Right? Don't be afraid to use these assets. Embrace it. It can be a phenomenal and profound experience. Right? As I said, I get a little carried away here. Okay. Number two, highly appreciated assets. How do we use those assets to position them for maximum income, maximum transfer of wealth, minimization or elimination of tax, and direction of social capital? That's all we do. That's why we don't have bad conversations with our clients. Our clients love growth like just everyone else, and we use the best companies in the world for it. As I said, we're an independent firm. So that's never the issue. They never call me on the phone and say, geez, John, the markets are up 20, we're up 20. Thank you. They never call me. But they do call me when they say, we pass on more wealth, we don't have to worry about it, we're going to pass on more wealth, regardless of what happens in the market or whatever we would have made in the market. You know? Even if we were as aggressive as we possibly could, we ended up passing on more wealth, tax-free to our children, in the form, protected, and everything else that we ever would have made in the market. We don't have to worry about it. So we can then direct all of our assets for one purpose and one purpose only: ourselves for income. That's great. Wow, powerful. Okay. All right, now number two. And if this is an actual case study, a client had a stock amongst their portfolio, but a stock that was worth about $1 million. It was founder stock, a stock of a company they had founded that went public. And unfortunately for them, they had a zero cost basis in that stock. And this was one stock. Zero cost basis. So when they went to their tax advisor, he told them that if you sell that stock, because what did they want? They wanted income. They wanted this asset they worked so hard to build to help to supplement the retirement income. Unfortunately, it didn't pay a dividend, and they were looking at a mighty heavy tax burden. So they're going to sell that. It was going to cost them over $250,000 of tax or more for the privilege of selling it. This person looked me directly in the eye and said, John, if any of your ideas encourage the payment of that tax, save your time, energy, and breath. I am not going to do it. I said, okay, hold on, Mr. Jones, hold on. Here we go. Mr. Jones, are you the owners of this stock? And they say, yes, of course we're the owners. And as the owners of anything, folks, as the owners of anything, home, this, whatever, what can you do with something you own? What can you do with it?
Whatever you want.
What's that?
Whatever you want.
Well, what is that? What can you do with it? Sell it, that's right. What else can you do with it? Gift it, right? And the other one that people often forget about, is that you can keep it. Sell it, gift it, keep it. Those are the three majors. One is you can collateralize it, but the three big majors are sell it, gift it, keep it. I said, okay, hold on to your hat, here we go. Let me just let them finish. Wow, your undivided attention. Sell it, gift it, keep it. What?
Did you think Notre Dame would do that well?
No. I don't know if that says more about us or says less about them.
They look strong.
And they're good. Actually, the defense is even better. That was a heck of a job on the defense. That's the first time in 42 meetings. They've played 42 times. First time that either team was ever shut out.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. Okay, gift it, sorry, sell it, gift it, keep it. Oh, there you go. It's all right, you just keep interrupting. That's it happens. What's that? Oops, pepper. Mining this, is that like filet?
This is how I enjoy it, hoping you eat tonight.
Well, you can imagine I do this about 40 to 60 times a year. So you can imagine if I did, it's twice my size. But I'm certainly a bit envious.
John, while you're waiting for the service, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely, by all means, interrupt me anytime.
The last presentation you made, just a clarification, Brian. You said in passing, forget about that automatic required distribution.
Right.
Did you simply mean accelerated, you can pay it at any time?
No, what I'm saying
You
is,
can't ignore it, can you?
no, I'm sorry if I gave you that impression. I'm not saying ignore it. I'm saying take more. You're always welcome, you're always allowed to take more than the required minimum. That's why it's a minimum. I can take as much as I want. I can take the whole IRA out if I want. But I'm saying position it so that the income from it can be far more than the required minimum. Because you can do far more with it. Not have to worry about it because it can't go down and you can't outlive it. Right? And then it makes it powerful. Those are powerful dollars when you generate. But you'll always satisfy your R&D. More than satisfy. Because you're going to take well in excess of it. Right? That's the key. Get as much out.
The second question really was clarification. You got that $4 million because that's the value of the insurance policy you can buy with $50,000.
Correct. For that person at age 70, that is correct. And that's an actual case. So the fact is, but you can see the power and the leveraging capability of that. It's enormous. Okay, back to this. Gift it, sell it, gift it, keep it. So, okay, here we go. What if we were to transfer that stock into what is affectionately referred to as a charitable remainder trust? Right? Now, again, the nomenclature tonight is not important. What is important to note about this is that this is an irrevocable trust. We all have something in common tonight. We all have Social Security numbers. We are all separate taxable entities. This, too, is a separate taxable entity. And if I transfer that stock, the ownership of it, into here, okay, now instead of being the owners of the stock, Mr. and Mrs. Jones are now the trustees of the trust. So the client says to me, wait a minute. I don't own the stock anymore? I said, no, you don't. Well, I don't know if I like that job. I said, well, what can you do up here as the owner? I could sell it, gift it, keep it. As the trustees of the trust, what can you do with that stock? Sell it, gift it, keep it. So I have the same control here, I have the same control here. If the stock paid a dividend, I know it doesn't, but if it did, as the owners of the stock, would you be entitled to the dividend? Yes, you would. As the trustees of the trust, if the stock paid a dividend, would you as the trustees be entitled to the dividend? Yes, you would. So you have all the beneficial interest here, you have all the beneficial interest here. You have all the control here, you have all the control here. What don't you have from A to B? Ownership. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, ownership in the United States is far overrated. The wealthiest people in this country do not own the most. They benefit the most, they control the most, but to own it is to pay what on? Tax, that's right. So the fact of the matter is, by moving this into the trust, and there was only one reason I'd move it into the trust, and that is to sell it, create cash, to what? To reinvest for purposes of exactly why the client came into my office to begin with. To receive benefit of a hard-earned dollar that they had built this beautiful asset, but they didn't want to sell it and they were ready to go to their grave before they sold it because they didn't want to pay the capital gains. Now they have this in cash, right, to generate income for both of their natural lives, to generate income and benefit that they've worked so hard for. And how much do they have to pay in tax if they sell it inside that trust? Absolutely nothing. They pay nothing in tax. Okay? So we can now generate income for both of their lifetimes, regardless of who dies first, on the gross proceeds and not the net proceeds after tax. Alright? Now, the next job as the planner is I go off to the IRS. We work with the largest trust administrator in the country, down in Indiana, and we find out what the IRS would allow us to take as an income every year. What is the payout rate that the IRS will allow you to take? Because the goal is to take as much income. That's the goal. We want income. We want benefit. What will the IRS allow? In 15 years, I do about 15 of these a year. Okay? I have never done one where the amount that you receive, the payout rate that you receive, is less than 8% per year. Right? That's not what the trust is earning, although these are reinvested. There's an investment inside here. There's only one investment to use inside a standard charitable trust. However, the government allows us, I've never done where the government has allowed you to take less than 8%. So 8% of $1 million is $80,000 of income and growing. Why is it growing? Well, because we're reinvesting those dollars. Your joint life expectancy could be 25 years. That 80,000 is certainly in purchasing power. It's not going to be worth as much tomorrow, as it is today. Ergo, we want that payment to keep up with at least the rate of inflation. All right? So we want to be reinvesting it. But it's worth $80,000. All right? So my client came into my office. He had $1 million in one stock. Well, by the way, it's not a small point. You know, don't you think that's a rather large position to have in one stock? How about if that stock was Enron? Yeah, that'd be a problem, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. Okay? So the point is, by being able to sell it inside the trust and then diversify the investments and reduce their market risk, that was a nice ancillary benefit of the thing as well. Okay, they came in with one stock worth $1 million, looking at a tax bill of $250,000 or more. I will go to my grave before I pay that tax bill, having received no benefit because it had no dividend. All right? Now, they pay nothing in tax. They have $80,000 a year of income and growing, projected, by the way, because we do the projections for them, in the millions upon millions of dollars of income for both of them by the time they die. They were going to have zero, now they have millions upon millions of income. Nice, right? So far, I'm on their holiday shopping list. Then they say to me, John, what's the catch? It sounds so too good to be true, you know the old adage. Well, here's the catch. When you both die, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, when you both die, regardless of who dies first, the remainder, hence the name, must go on to your favorite charity or family foundation. Wait a minute, John. Wait. You're telling me a stock my wife and I worked our entire lives for, the value of which is going to go on to some charity and not our children? What are you, out of your mind? Are you in the habit of giving your clients money away? No, I am not. Because before we ever put something inside one of these trusts, it's a gift. Before we ever gift something inside that trust, what must we always do prior? We must replace the value of this gift to your children tax-free. This is the fun part for me. We actually go away, we can calculate what portion of this new income, projected in millions upon millions of dollars, that you never would have received $1 of had you stayed in the stock, because you were never going to sell that stock until the day you die. Right? We find out how much of that income represents the taxes you didn't have to pay. And in this particular case, it was roughly about $20,000. We get Uncle Sam, repeat, Uncle Sam, this is money you would have given Uncle Sam. We get Uncle Sam to subsidize the replacement of the gift that you made to your children inside what we call a wealth trust, funded by the only thing you could pass on tax-free, joint life or individual life. And in this case, we put in $2 million, double the amount of the value of the stock. Right? Oh, and one last thing. We also calculated for the client what the projected value of this gift will be when they both die. How much will you give when you both die? In this case, it was about $300,000. Well, do Mr. and Mrs. Jones have to wait till they die to take the income tax deduction associated with that gift? No! They can take that today. Now, they can't take an entire $300,000 deduction in 1 year. They're limited to 30% of their adjusted gross income, but they have a 6-year carry-forward period. Suffice it to say for our discussion this evening, folks, is that this new income that they found, that they never had before, projected in millions upon millions of dollars for the first 5 or 6 years because of that tax deduction, will be virtually tax-free. Right? So let's go back. Right? That's okay. Let's go back. Let's review. Client comes in, has $1 million in one stock. A stock that they're looking at a $250,000 or more tax bill. They have already indicated to me they're defiant. I will die with that stock before I pay Uncle Sam that capital gain. It's okay. Well, that may not be the best alternative because you get no benefit in the form of income because the stock doesn't pay a dividend. So you get nothing after all your hard work. And I think we can do better for your kids and for your estate if you try something else. Okay. So we actually transfer the stock into the trust. We sell the stock. Before we transfer it into the trust, right, we have to replace the value of that gift. If we give that into the trust, it's an irrevocable transfer. Okay? It's a gift. Once we put it in there, right, we can't take it back. Right? But we have to replace, that's why we have to replace the value, because if you die the very next day, that asset would be out of your estate going on to a charity and not to your children. So before we put it in, we calculate of the new income what portion represents the taxes you didn't have to pay to the government if you sold that stock outside the trust. In this case, $20,000 of the $80,000 represented the taxes you saved that the government's not going to get. Well, then we get the government to replace the value of the gift with the $20,000 inside another type of trust for your children called a wealth trust, funded by joint life or individual life. And in this case, we were able to put $2 million, or 2 times the value of the gift in there, with the savings from the government that they didn't get. So Uncle Sam just gave your kids $2 million of tax-free proceeds. You now have income of $80,000 and growing, projecting the millions upon millions of dollars for the rest of both of your natural lives. Okay? And Uncle Sammy, he doesn't get it. All right? So let's remember my little theme that I had: parents win, heirs win, IRS loses. Let's look at it again. Parents win in this case. Millions upon millions of dollars. If they had never met me, they were going to die with that asset, having received no income and no benefit. Now they have income protecting the millions upon millions of dollars. Parents clearly win. Second, heirs win 2 times the value of that stock outside the estate tax-free. Heirs clearly win. What about the IRS? Do they get the $250,000 of capital gains tax? What about the asset? The $1 million is now in this trust. It's outside your estate. It's not in your estate anymore. If you had an estate tax issue, right? The estate tax rate is 45%. I just saved their kids potentially $450,000 of estate tax, on top of $250,000 of capital gain tax. On top of that, I gave the parents a $300,000 income tax deduction against the new income that I created for them that they never had before, making that income for the first 5 or 6 years virtually tax-free. Okay. Parents win, heirs win, IRS. Total certainty over here, what the kids are going to get, 2 times the value of the stock. Certainty over here, because this income, you can't outlive it. It's for the rest of your natural lives. Both of you, regardless of who dies first, and the IRS doesn't get their taxes. Now, many people might say to me, why would the IRS allow you to do that? Many people have asked me. Well, the answer is, and I know you're going to find this very, very surprising, that the United States government is not the most efficiently run organization in the world. I hope I didn't burst anybody's bubble. But the fact of the matter is, $1, statistically it's been proven, that $1 that you send directly to a charity of your choice is the equivalent of $3 sent off to the United States Treasury in tax. So the government knows that too. So they say to you, if you follow the rules, all right, we'll allow you all the benefits, you win income, wealth for the kids, everything else. You don't have to pay those taxes. And you'll direct that residual value to your charity of your choice. You get directed, not them, you. But they know those dollars will be used far more efficiently than if you simply sent off those tax dollars, if you sold that stock outside the trust, directly to the IRS. So as long as you play their game, they're happy to provide you the benefits. In fact, not only do they allow you to do it, they encourage you to do it. Because they know that fact. They know that very fact. Now, as the gentleman said over here, can I always revoke the gifts? Are these gifts revocable? Well, in fact, they are. Let's say you name American Health Society as your charity. And you say, well, can I change that? I say, yeah. In fact, I always ask my clients when they name their charities, do you mind if I write a little letter to your charities? And they say, no. What is it going to say? I said, well, basically it's going to say, dear Mr. Charity, Mr. and Mrs. Jones have just made a projected gift to you of $300,000 at their death. Oh, and by the way, Mr. Charity, you know that gift? it's revocable. You know what happens to my clients? They get very popular. Next week they get a little call on the phone. Hey, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. How are you? This is Mr. Charity. We just want to thank you for that lovely gift that you made. And by the way, we're having a little soiree at the Waldorf, and we'd love to have you. Why don't you bring your little friend, Mr. Dad? Some of my clients like being that popular. Others will say to me, John, you send that letter off and I'll cut your legs off. Right? Then privacy is all important. But it's what the client will do. But the fact is, here they have used an asset that they were willing to go to their grave with no benefit after doing all the hard work. And now what do they have? Income protected with millions of dollars, 2 times the value of the asset outside the estate to their children tax-free. And Uncle Sam gets puppies because you get to direct those tax dollars to the causes of your choice. Parents win, heirs win, IRS. With more certainty, not less, more. The game at a certain point in time, folks, is not all about growth. People are very surprised by the fact that it has been proven that at age 70, 80% of all further capital appreciation, what I mean by that is growth on your investments, you will never spend. 80% you will never spend. Now, should that mean we don't do any growth investments after age 70? No, of course not. We all love growth, and everybody should because we're doing it for our children. All I'm saying is you can mix it with strategies and using assets properly that have a bigger bang for your buck with less worry. Because I don't know if you're going to die in the biggest bull market, and I don't know if you're going to die tomorrow or 50 years from now. Right? My clients love certainty, and that creates a wonderful relationship between ourselves and them. And that's a hell of a way to do it. It's just a different way to do it. Just a different way to do it. Doesn't mean we give up the growth. The growth is still there. We're still working with the best companies in the world. We still control the investments, but you control them to the extent that you wish to. Right? You haven't given up anything. You've just positioned it differently for maximum benefit. That's all. Different types of assets, cohesive purpose, maximum income, maximum wealth, minimization, elimination of tax, direction of social capital, certainty, and peace of mind. Okay? Anyone? This is not an easy concept. So it's not important, as I said before, to get all the mechanics behind it. What is important is to be able to say to yourself, you know what? We have that stock, we have that investment property that we thought about selling, but we didn't want to sell because of all the capital gain tax. Our primary residence. I use this for primary residences all the time. Clients will have a $2 million residence, right? Just make up a number, where they pay between their cost basis and their deduction to get that joint deduction of $500,000. They may have a cost basis of $1 million. So they say, John, if we sell our primary residence, we're going to have to incur a $1 million capital gain. I said, that's right, it's true. But what if you could sit at the closing, and I'll have to write a check to you for $1 million tax-free, which represents your cost basis. The other $1 million you put inside the trust. You don't pay anything in capital gains tax, you generate income for the rest of your lives based upon that $1 million. So they have the best of both worlds. Cash, plus the income, no capital gain. So there are a lot of ways of doing it. A lot of ways of doing it. Right? It's just a different way of looking at it. But if you can identify in the back of your mind something that you would otherwise not sell, that could be anything. I've done this with a coin collection. Right? It's a highly appreciated coin collection. Right? The fact of the matter is, you can use this technique. It's a very popular technique. Yes?
How far in advance of that sale
That's a good question.
of commercial
Property.
house
You have to do.
do you need to
It's
be?
a great question. It's a good question. The question here is how far in advance do you have to set this up, all right, to actually take
The
advantage?
day before you close is, I'm assuming, too late.
Yeah, that's probably a little too late. Here's the rule of thumb. Here's the rule of thumb. For a primary residence or investment property, if you're going to sell it, you have to change title to the property, all right, in order to use this technique. You can take a verbal offer, from a sale, from the buyer, but you cannot go to written contract before this is settled. So you can agree with the buyer upon, okay, we have a price, we agree on it, so on and so forth, but before you go to written contract, you have to set this up. Does that mean if I was going to just close in 3 months, I could do that? Sure, you could, in 3 months. Yeah, the IRS isn't going to, again, they encourage you to do it if you follow the rules. So as long as you follow the rules. So it has to be done in anticipation. In anticipation, that's fine, but it has to be done prior to going into written contract. Verbal contract, yes, written contract. Okay. Other questions? As I said, complicated. Mechanics not important. It's just the idea that you don't have to die with it. I have a lot of clients, very wealthy clients, who say to me, well, John, this looks great if I needed the income. This client wanted the income and they didn't have any income. Now you give them lots of income, they're very happy, and you passed on wealth. That's great. But what if I don't need the income? Why would I do it? I'll just let myself die, we'll get the step up in basis, and that's it. Well, because you're missing out on an opportunity. How about if I took the same thing without needing the income? Did the same exact thing. I had $80,000 over here. What can I do with that $80,000 that you said you don't need? I could put $8 million in here. $8 million of cash. I just made their IBM stock go from $1 million to $8 million. Oh, and by the way, this $1 million is in your estate for taxes, and this $8 million is outside your estate for taxes. So it's not just a question of income, although there's a major income benefit. It's what can I do with it? So even if you personally don't need the income, don't sell the technique short, because the fact of the matter is you can use that income to make it very, very powerful for your heirs. You know, what would your kids rather have? $1 million of IBM stock or $8 million? So you go back when you die and buy 8 times of that. Yes.
The 80,000 you're talking about that income, that's the income that you earn from the million put aside.
That's why I have to be careful. The 8% is what the government, through our testing, has said that you can take as an income. My job is to go out and do certain tests
Every year.
every year of the value of the trust. That has nothing to do with the investments in it.
But then the 80,000 I can do an $8 million.
Right.
But that 80,000 is every year.
Right.
Do I have to fund that wealth investment trust 80,000 every year?
If
To maintain the 8 million.
If I wasn't going to use the income myself and I just wanted to leverage the value of the stock, yes, you do, because it's still investment.
Right, so you feed it, so to speak.
What's that?
So you're feeding the wealth trust.
Yes, you have to feed. Whenever you pay life insurance, the cheapest way to pay it,
The premium.
or we call it the investment premium. The cheapest way to pay it is over your life. Right? Now, I have some clients who have been consistent with me. Love the idea, John, but I'm not paying that over my life. I'll pay it for 10 years and then I'm stopped. I say, but Mr. Jones, you realize if you die within the first 10 years, you have overpaid for that contract, right, for that benefit. And as long as they understand that, that's fine. Right? But some people, they just don't want to pay for it anymore after a certain period of time. But the cheapest way to pay it is over your life because no one knows when you're going to die. Right? No one knows. So consequently, life expectancy payments are the best important. Again, the mechanics, we would have to go over it with you. But the idea that I can benefit or I can benefit my children if I don't need the income more substantially and get rid of the IRS, it's just another usage. How do I use highly appreciated assets more effectively to maximize income, transfer of wealth, and minimization of tax? Just like that. We do that with every asset you own. Real estate equity. Real estate equity, ladies and gentlemen, is like putting cookies in a cookie jar or money's under a mattress. Equity in real estate does not earn a single solitary dime. It can grow, but the appreciative potential of any real estate you own is irregardless of the equity you already have in it. It's a dead asset. Warren, not Warren Buffett. There's a gentleman, Barton Biggs from Morgan Stanley. Does a wonderful presentation. And I like Barton Biggs, I think he's a brilliant guy. But does a wonderful presentation on why it's best to rent in retirement. And it's a very compelling argument. Equity is just stuck there. It's great when you're growing it, but when you get to benefiting from it, just having it stuck there, especially when we have rates now, so if clients are trying to size down in retirement, sell their homes and everything else, and buy a new home, you never want to buy that, especially given where rates are now, even if they have the cash. You don't want to buy that in cash, because then you're putting cash back into as a dead asset. It doesn't earn a dime. So we show clients ways of being able to shift equity, get it working for them, whether they sell the properties or not, right? Give you full power and control. But every asset has a different purpose. Every asset has a different usage strategy. But then you put them all together, and it's powerful, with more peace of mind, not less. So how do we do it as a firm? Well, at the end of my comments this evening, each one of them will receive my brochure that will take you through what I call the wealth maximization journey. The next step in the wealth maximization journey is what I call the wealth maximization workshop. Now, the workshop gets a bad connotation. It sort of connotes a group event. I'm going to a workshop. No. Ladies and gentlemen, look around here this evening, since you can be very friendly with one another. This is your group event. Every step in the wealth maximization journey beyond this evening is an individual or individual couple event. The workshop is an individual or individual couple complementary.
Is that free?
That is. You like that word, don't you?
Yeah.
an individual or individual couple complimentary meeting with myself or one of my representatives in the privacy of our offices. Now, we tend to insist on you coming to see us. Why is that? Well, because I learned a long time ago from an entrepreneurial coach up in Toronto, Canada. Nationally recognized, wonderful guy, brilliant guy. I'm a big believer in what is called experience selling. When people come into my office, I want them to have a positive experience. So what we do is we wrap around each one of our trademark programs. We wrap our technical expertise in an experience like none other. Challenge me with this and I'll prove you wrong. Right? The fact of the matter is, every time you walk into our office, we have a planned experience waiting for you. And as I said, come to our office and you will certainly see the difference immediately upon walking in. Why? Because we've planned it that way. Because we want to control the experience and maximize that positive experience for you. On top of our technical expertise, we tend to insist on you coming to see us. What are we going to do in that 60 to 90 minute meeting that you've never done before in your financial lives? We're going to assess your current financial condition using a technique I developed some 6-7 years ago called my DOS method, which is a fancy acronym for dangers, opportunities, and strengths. Dangers, opportunities, and strengths. We know that every prospective client we've ever met, we have them all from all over the country, have done a level of planning. We're not here to recreate the wheel for you. What we are here to do are to identify areas, those 3 biggest danger areas that you face financially speaking. What opportunities in terms of usage of assets, usage strategies for different types of assets you own can help make a profound and qualitative difference for you and your family. And what, finally, you and your spouse and your family bring to bear, your strengths bring to bear in helping us get that done. I like to call it the dynamic discussion. You have to forgive me, folks, but after 15 years, I have names for everything. At the end of that conversation, I've done hundreds. Right? I will know for a fact, very quickly, whether or not you make a good candidate for any of our 3 trademark programs. At which time, I will tell you how one becomes a member of any one of our 3 trademark programs. There is a one-time, all right, lifetime membership fee for each and every one of our programs. Right? There's a big range of it depending upon the complexity of the work that we're doing for you. But the good news is that that's not the way our firm makes a living. Right? There is a reason I use it. There's no secret about it. I'm going to share it with you. It barely pays for our time and expense, but it has never failed me. The reason why I charge a membership fee is this. If I see that you are someone that I can make a qualitative difference with in that meeting, all I need to do is to get you to sit with me for a minimum of 3 meetings. I never put a limit on it. As I told you, we're not on a time clock. But if I get you to sit with me for a minimum of 3 meetings, I'm going to turn you into a client for life. In 15 years, it has never failed. Don't you be the first one to break my record. But the fact of the matter is, how do I get you to sit with me for those first 3 meetings? If I see that you're a good candidate, how do I get you? Well, if you put up your hard-earned dollars up front, I can assure myself of one thing in 15 years, you are going to show up for those 3 meetings. Okay? If you do, unless it proves to otherwise, you're going to like what I have to say. And the fact is, it's likely, by the way we treat you and the way we treat our clients and everything else, you're going to become a client of ours for life. And that's what we intend to do, right? That's what we intend to do. So I've never understood, folks, in all honesty, why people, and again, everybody's different, who spend 20, 30, 40 years in a working career building a level of assets, will take an hour of their time with a qualified professional on our nickel with a positive experience waiting for them to understand the full benefit of what could be. I'm not trying to sell you on an investment. I'm not trying to sell you on an insurance product. I'm trying to get you committed to yourselves to understand how you can make the most, to unleash the possibilities of those assets. All the different ones, creating that cohesive purpose with you in mind first, your hair second, and getting rid of Uncle Sam to the extent possible. And you getting to control all that more than you probably are. You don't control where your tax dollars are going to be spent right now. Right? So there's a lot of benefit to it. It's just a different approach. If I've done anything tonight, it's to show you a different method that we've used. My father, when I grew my business before he passed away, my best friend, he used to always say, "John, you have a wonderful story. It works." Right? And he was very sad financially. He says, "But you do yourself a favor. When we're out into the public, don't try to create interest. Don't try to create interest. Don't try to force people. Just find them. Because there's so many people out there. I've never done more business than in 2008. Because people were looking for an alternative to the traditional way of thinking. Right? And ours was certainly a source of that. Right? So the fact of the matter is, we have a wonderful relationship with our clients for a very good reason. Because it's not based solely on the CME ticker, and they're still getting more benefit for them in the form of income and more wealth to their areas. It's just a different way of doing it. It's just something most financial advisors don't take it this way. And I have a lot of people say to me, "John, I have a wonderful relationship with my broker. 30 years he's been working with us, he's done a great job. And you know what? I always say, thank God. I love hearing great stories. Because, you know, when you hear bad stories, right? It's nice to hear a good story. And I always say it's great. And you don't have to change your program. You don't have to do anything. That's the beauty of our programs. You're not committing to doing anything. You're not committing to buying anything, transferring it. You're committing to yourself to understand what could be. Right? But your broker took you from A to B. Good job. To take you from B to C, if you like the benefits of which I speak, he can't take you there. You're going to have to make that decision yourself. But the point is, don't worry about it. What did I say? You want it to be a positive experience? Let's get the sales piece out. We've worked very hard over the last 10 years in refining our programs to make the sales piece the last piece. It's the easiest part of my job. Easiest part. I'm an independent firm. If we ever do any of these strategies, you know who I'm bringing to the table? The best financial companies and insurance companies in the country. Easiest part of my job. Right? The hardest part is getting you motivated to understand what could be. And make that qualitative difference in your own and your family's lives. And I love to do that. Love it when the client says you've made that difference. When they hold up their wine, John, we take our best bottle of wine, we toast it on a cruise, and we say, hey, you know, we're getting Uncle Sam to subsidize the use of our IRA. Thank you very much, Mr. Devlin. Great. Because you truly understand how to use it. And that's great. That's great. So tonight, as Sean comes around, as you're enjoying your dessert and coffee, please give him the courtesy of a few minutes of your time, hopefully to sign you up for one of our workshops. I always encourage you, if you're going to sign up for workshops, and again, the workshop is only meant as an exploration. I've never had someone come out of a workshop and say, oh, I'm wasting my time. Because you're going to learn more in that workshop about the possibilities of your assets than your broker or your attorney has ever told you. Okay? So it's never going to be a waste. Now we understand that there are different points in everybody's lives. Sometimes the timing isn't right or what. All right? We'll deal with that. But take the time to do the workshop because there's absolutely no drawback. You're going to have a wonderful positive experience because we're going to plan it that way. And number two is, you know, you're going to learn more about the assets you're going to have, what you've worked so hard for, and how to make the most of them for yourselves and live your life. So take a few minutes. I've always said to clients, if those that want to make a workshop date outside of a month from now, I strongly recommend you don't do that. We'll take the date, but the likelihood is by that time, we always send out a confirmation letter of when the workshop will be, and we'll call you a day or two before to confirm it. But we've often found that people who make workshops without a month out in advance, typically we'll forget this lovely evening and all the nice things Mr. Van Wert had to speak about. So the fact of the matter is it's very much encouraged that you try to make a workshop, that you try to do within the next week, right? When it's somewhat fresh, and then we can look at it. You don't have to bring anything to the workshop, you don't have to bring any financial statements, just bring yourselves. We ask you to fill out a quick little asset survey, just so I know the types of assets you have and the values of them. Not where they are, what the positions are, no. It's very comfortable, very comfortable. And explore those possibilities. I love doing it. I love making that qualitative difference. If you want me to be personally at the workshop to do it, I like doing them. I love creating the vision for the kind of where we can go. Then just simply tell Sean, and he'll make a note. And 95 times out of 100, I do some traveling, but 95 times out of 100 I can be there. And I will be there because I love to do it. Right? But take the time for the workshop at the very least. Because I know it will be a positive experience. And I know you're going to walk out at least knowing more about what could be than what you currently do. And I love to do that. Again, I'm going to thank you for your time and attention tonight. I hope you enjoyed your meal. It looked like you did.
Delicious.
Of course, I couldn't buy it with you or whatever, but that was good. All right? And I'm glad you did. I'm glad. So as I said, Sean will be around here while you're having dessert and coffee. Oh, there he is. I'm right on cue. And as I said, I want to thank you for your time and attention. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you at the workshop. Any questions? Oh, by the way, one of the questions that people always come up with is, John, how do you make a living? And I always tell my clients, I make a very handsome living. But the good news for my clients, it doesn't come out of your pocket. And they say, well, how's that? Well, let's, for example, let's say there's an investment inside you. Remember, we reduce it to cash and we reinvest. And the standard child unit trust, there is one investment that is used in there. Right? Not only that, it's a type of investment. You can invest with the best companies in the world. But the point is that it's one type of investment. When we, let's say that investment was with Goldman Sachs. And you say to me, all right, well, what is Goldman going to charge me for that investment? I said, they're going to charge you A, B, C, and D. And you say, okay, that seems reasonable. You're going to take care of everything for us? I said, yes. I'm not going to send you down to Broad Street in New York. We'll take care of everything. But when we refer that business to Goldman, Goldman turn around and pay our firm a very handsome referral fee on an ongoing basis. Good news for our clients is, had you gone to Goldman to find that product and service all by yourself, having never met me, you would pay exactly the same amount for the privilege of using their product and service. They simply carve out a portion of what they otherwise would keep and pay it back to my firm. My clients actually look at me and say, you know what? We hope you get it all back, John, because we're not paying anything more for your ongoing counsel, advice, and support for as long as we wish to be a member of your firm. It makes for a hell of a nice relationship. I'll never charge you, other than the membership fee, I'll never charge you directly again, ever. Right? I'll never add my fee on top of someone else's fee. I don't have to. So it's a all win-win situation. More of that to be found out at the workshop. And again, Sean will answer, address any additional questions you have. I see you're poised for a question. You have a question? What is that?
It's a personal one because
I don't have my glasses on, so.
your name,
Oh, my name is there. Where'd you get that? What is that?
that's because we originally started with you long ago and then there was a
Disconnect?
divorce.
I don't remember.
So I'd like to talk with, how to get back with you.
Okay, very good. Well, Sean will certainly do that, and let's find time to do that. I thought the name sounded familiar, I have to tell you. Sean, I did.
That's how we knew Rob.
John and John.
That's right. Yeah. I do, no, I have to say, the name
There's
is...
so few of you.
Yes, there are. That is the truth. All right, Sean, come on in. As I said, thank you very much, folks. I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you, hopefully. Very good. Please take advantage of the workshop. Thank you very much.